Hello everyone, it's me, it's the dude Broman, the Hiberian, and oh my mic, oh I was looking at the wrong thing. Yeah, it's working. I'm the dude Broman, the Hiberian, welcome to my stream. Today we're going to be making a lot of heavy linen gloves and disenchanting them, and by a lot I mean several thousand. I'm going to open my chat bot. Okay, first we're going to check if our bags need to be uh, replaced. Okay, that can stay in there. Another weave bag. Yes, he undercut me by 47 of them. So we need to cancel 50. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I'm at 25. I gotta reload. Alright, and we're gonna be watching videos while we do this. I just gotta use my brain power real quick. Come on, load in. Okay, I was at 25. 26. 30. 35. 40. 43, and I gotta reload again. We're at 43. Okay, this is a step-by-step guide on how to destroy a new race by Akalon.
Galak, you have returned from your hunt. I trust the weapons I supplied you were effective. Good. Now go. Take the eye. But bring me any prisoners you capture. Karak may want them for more testing.
It will be done.
How do you manage to invent a really cool race in World of Warcraft and then make that race such a nothing burger in less than a year? Like, I don't. This has to be a fucking skill, bro. Like, the Joradin, I remember at the beginning of the expansion, I had videos talking about how cool the Joradin are, and I still think they're a cool race. But they've just turned into this absolute nothing burger. Like, there's no real story for them. They've thus far literally just been mechanisms in the plot of
Post
the
45 of them.
incarnates.
I don't know what the Jarden are.
It's
I haven't played Dragonflight.
it truly is a little
I think I had a quest to kill them. I did like
wild. Like it
maybe
takes
3
skill
quests in
to
Dragonflight, and I
turn
was like,
something
nah, dude, I'm out.
into like something so
am
cool that could
out.
be so cool into something so absolutely
I'll
mind.
leave him 5 on the front page.
Former Prime Designate, the strongest keeper, getting one-shotted by nobody doesn't sit well with me. Tulanis, this may actually prove just how powerful the Incarnates truly is. Now, there's a very interesting thing with the Incarnates that I think a lot of people sort of missed. Razageth says this to Rathian in the beginning of the expansion, when Razageth makes fun of Rathian. And Razageth basically explains that the aspects traded what a true dragon is for the gift of the Titans. The aspects are incredibly weak when you compare them to what the Incarnates can do. And all throughout this expansion, we have seen the aspects get their asses handed to them by the Incarnates. Like every single time
They
there's been
didn't
a
have their
one-on-one
aspect
battle
power though.
between the Incarnates and the Aspects, the Incarnates did not take long to kick the Aspects in the balls. Now, my thinking about this is that, remember, the Titans like order. Anything, Razageth says this, anything that they could not control, they imprison. Because they want order. Which means when the Titans gifted the Aspects with their power, it wasn't so that the Aspects would be more powerful. It was so that they could control the Aspects. So that the Aspects would operate within a very given like parameter. And they wouldn't paint outside of that wall. And for a long time, the Aspects did exactly that. What I think they did not count on was when the Aspects gave up their power to defeat Deathwing. When the Aspects took all of their order magic and funneled it into the Dragon Soul in order to defeat Deathwing, the indoctrination from the Titans started to wane. Slowly but surely, that indoctrination started to go away. For Viranoth and the other Incarnates, those limitations do not exist. They have full access to the full might of their power sources. Viranoth has full access to the realms of water and frost. This makes her incredibly powerful. Virak has full access to the realms of fire. Iridikron has full access to the realms of earth. Now remember, they actually tell us this. It took all of the aspects just to take down Iridikron. One incarnate, and it took all of the aspects to take down that incarnate. The incarnates, I believe the reason the incarnates were imprisoned, the reason the Titans and the Titan Keepers could not allow the incarnates to roam free was exactly because their power is too great. It was always inevitable that the
I haven't really
Proto-Drakes
seen the
would
Incarnates do
realize
anything
that
pretty
they are
crazy.
stronger than what the Titans could ever imagine. And so they knew that the only way to control these Proto-Drakes was to turn them into beings of order, to order them, thereby limit their power. And the same is true pretty much in all walks of life. Chaos is very good, right? Even in real life. When you have chaos, that leads to innovation, that usually leads to a lot of prospects, as well as a lot of people getting rich and a lot of people getting this, but it also leads to really bad things. Like a lot of people dying, or a lot of people this or that. Chaos is good, but also bad. The Titans want no chaos. They reject chaos wherever they can, and thus it would almost always have a limiting factor on power. So fair enough, being able to kick Odin's ass makes perfect sense to me from a lore perspective. The cinematic was the cherry on top
Denuser
of what
skillfully
would
destroys
probably
WoW's
go
story.
down in the history of World of Warcraft as the worst series of storytelling Blizzard has ever had in the history of World of Warcraft. It has never been this bad. You know, in the past, there would always be things that would be hit and miss, which, you know, you can sort of argue for or against the things that's hit and miss. Sometimes they don't land something because they're trying something else, whatever the case may be. This is the first time in the history of World of Warcraft where we have had not a single story fucking hit. Not a single one. There's not been a single cinematic this entire expansion that even got its emotional messaging through, right? They tried to be super dramatic and deep, and it just came across as what the fuck, right? They tried to have these incredibly emotional moments, and everyone was just sort of sitting here going, ooh. They tried to have these super dangerous villain moments, you know, where the villain is speaking like this, and oh my god. And everyone else just sort of... There's not been a single cinematic or storyline this entire expansion that worked, that actually nailed what it was trying to do. Every single cinematic came across as hyper cringe, like seriously cringe. Every single cinematic felt so flat and shallow, and there's a reason why it feels so incredibly flat and shallow. Kitty Cat, very astute. It's pretend. Because the cinematics are trying to elicit an emotional response, it fails. All emotional responses in media is the result of an accident. It's usually a very happy accident that leads to an incredible emotional response. Now, what I mean by that isn't that the writers aren't trying to write
I should play through the story.
emotional
I wonder
bit,
what
or
the
that the writers
emotional
aren't trying
stuff
to
they're
write a
trying to
funny
make you view is.
it's that the story has to naturally lead there. You can't force it. You can't get a story. You can't decide. I'll give you guys a great example. I am, and I know this looks like I look the opposite of this, but I am a massive romantic and rom-com fan. I love romance movies and I love romantic comedy. Let's chalk that up to being eternally single or whatever the fuck you want, right? Or always horny, whatever it is. I love romantic comedies. I love romance. It's just, I like the movies. I like the interactions. I like the drama of it. I'm a huge fan of it. What is, for anyone that likes romance movies as well, what in your mind would be the worst romantic film of all time? And I'm talking blockbusters. I'm not talking about the weak source ones that come out on Hallmark every once in a while. What is the worst romantic film of all time in your mind?
Selling a lot of netherweave bags right now. My undercut was just in time.
It's P.S. I Love You. P.S. I Love You is, without
Sure
a doubt,
51st dates.
the worst romantic film in the history of cinema, at least that I have watched. And here's why. From the first minute of that film unto the last, that entire script is trying to make you cry. Like everything is written in such a way that they want the tears to flow. I sat and I watched that phone with my ex-girlfriend like this. It's not sad. You're trying to get me to cry. That's not how you get me to cry. If you want me to showcase emotion, it needs to happen naturally. It needs to be natural. The problem is with World of Warcraft and Dragonflight, nothing is natural. Not a single thing in any of these cinematics is natural. It doesn't take place because what else would you have there? The reason
Please follow the stream.
Old Soldier
It really helps
is one
me
of the
out.
greatest cinematics in the history of World of Warcraft. And the reason I'm using Old Soldier is because it isn't filled with aggression and filled with action. It's a very deep, heavy story. But why does it work? Because there is no other way that it could have ended. That cinematic was the culmination of Sour Fang's story. When you watch that cinematic, there is no other place for Sour Fang's story to go but to that cinematic. So it works. It impacts the player. The player immediately
I missed it. Is he
feels
talking about the
connected to it
Shadowlands?
because the player has been on this journey with Sour Fang. Story, but why and filled with action. Because it isn't filled with aggression and filled with action. It's a very deep, heavy story. But why does it work? Because there is no other way that it could have ended. That cinematic was the culmination of Sour Fang's story. When you watch that cinematic, there is no other place for Sour Fang's story to go but to that cinematic. So it works. It impacts the player. The player immediately feels connected to it because the player has been on this journey with Sour Fang. The issue with all of the Dragonflight cinematics is by the time the cinematic comes, there's been no build-up. There's been no exposition. These cinematics do not end a story already told. The cinematics tell the story and then try to end the story in the same space. That's it. That is legitimately it. Because you've done no work beforehand to try and set up the story. You're now left to try and do all of the work in the cinematic. So what do we get with this, shall we call it, whatever the fuck you want to call this cinematic, if I'm very honest with you. Well, let's see, shall we? Let's watch it. Let's watch it.
All right, let's watch it.
Okay, so where's the cinematic where I reacted to it? Did I react on Wowhead? I think I reacted on Wowhead. Let's go. Let's do this. Wowhead. All right. Now, which one of these? Is it this one, or is it this one? I think it's this one. All right. So. Just take a look at this.
Be our spectral powers have returned.
Oh, I saw this one.
This is not the
It was
Titan's
the
magic.
power of family.
This is of our world, yet unlike anything I have known.
Amir Drasil has left the dream. And while the aspects once gave their blessing to the world trees, this time...
Azeroth blessed us.
I know what we'll do.
Evan Horn, you're supposed
We'll
to be
just
cool.
tell the player everything that's going on. What we will not do under any circumstances is leave any fucking doubt with use of subtext or with the use of imagery. No. The player is too fucking stupid to understand anything. Like, we can't show the player anything. What we have to do is we have to tell the player everything. So we have to walk the player through the story. Oh my god, this power comes from Azeroth. No, but it is actually Azeroth. It is so different. Oh my god, I feel so much more powerful. This is from our world. You realize you're showing us a cinematic, right? You could literally show these things. Like, you could show it. You don't have to tell it. This is not a book. We're not reading anything. You could fucking show it. Through the use of imagery, you could show it. But no, I have to tell you because you're too fucking stupid. By the way, everyone in chat, I want you to understand something. Blizzard thinks you are too fucking stupid to understand subtext. Blizzard thinks that your
Could have like
IQ
shown
is
the
too low
beams of light
to
coming out of
follow a
Azeroth,
story.
like going through
So they have
everything.
to tell you. They have to give you all of the captions. What are they thinking? Well, you don't have to worry about that. They'll tell you what they're thinking. It won't be through a look, right? It won't be through flashing. Here's the thing, okay? This entire scene, this entire thing here, right? All the way up until here. Can I fix it for you? 10 seconds is all I need. 10 seconds is all I need. This is literally all I'm asking for. What's that cinematic? Let me just quickly go back. This one. Come on, fucking YouTube. Right here. Right here. This is how the cinematic starts, okay? Fade to black. It's all black, all right? It's black. It's completely black, all right? And then it fades in. The screen fades in and you see Alexstrasza. You see Alexstrasza's face all over your screen, right? You're coming a little because she's pretty. Why not, right? But you're here, right? You've got a semi at the minute. It's really building, yeah? It happens, and then there's a, and you see a flash, just a flash. I'll show you what flash you see. I'll show you what flash you see. And an enthrall. We could probably do just war within cinematic. Yeah, let's do that. This is perfect.
Needed
This flashes. Okay, so it's her face all over your screen, right? It's her face, and then suddenly a flash. This shows up.
Look, the
And
beams of
then-
light.
Boom. In 5 seconds. In 5 seconds, I have shown you that the aspects have just gotten their power back, and they got their power from? Who did they get their power from?
Azeroth. Run, Luna. Go, go.
5 seconds. It took me 5 seconds to fucking tell you, right, or show you what this cinematic took 58 seconds, just about.
About coming together.
58 seconds. Yeah? It took them 50 seconds to do what could have happened in 5 seconds if they just used the power of vision. These cinematics are written as if Blizzard is convinced that half their audience is blind and deaf. That is genuinely how these cinematics are written. As if they are written for blind people. Oh wait, what if our audience is blind? Then they won't be able to see all the images, so we have to tell them everything that's fucking going on the screen. I don't know if you guys have ever watched a caption movie where you have a voice that tells you exactly what's happening every single scene. These are Blizzard cinematics. It doesn't show, it tells. And in 5 seconds, you would have done a much better job because the player base would have known. So what happens in the next 50 seconds, give or take?
Yes, I finished that.
As far as I understand it, Vernoth is actually hurt at the end of this cinematic. You show the aspects healing Veranoff. That gives you that sense of togetherness, right? That sense of family. They are there for one another. You show it. You show it. You don't fucking say it. What is this for? Who is this made for? And this is not, if this was one cinematic, it may actually have been okay, but it's not just one cinematic. It's every single fucking cinematic. It's every single one of the World of Warcraft cinematics is like this. The Farak can't show you that he's evil. No. Farak needs to tell you that he's evil. He needs to explain it to you so that is absolutely zero uncertainty about just how evil Farak may or may not be. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you guys. Because it's not as if Blizzard is incapable of doing good cinematics. You have this one.
Enough of this foolishness!
Genuinely a good cinematic, this.
I agree.
Genuinely a good cinematic, this. So it's not as if, but you see, this is almost like a byproduct cinematic. The idea with this cinematic is we just need to get it over with. She's freeing the Stone Drakes. Who gives a shit, right? This cinematic creates everything that you want within the cinematic, everything that you and I want to see within the cinematic, but it also creates so many questions, which I think is the mark of a really good story and a really good cinematic for WoW, is that it gives some answers, yes, but it also then creates a lot of questions, you know, a lot of, oh my god, what the hell is this? You know, what's going on here? Like, what are we building up to? Where are we going with this story? These are all things that should have been here. There's another thing that is actually perhaps the saddest part of this entire cinematic. See if you guys can spot it. Like the saddest part of this entire cinematic.
How can this be? Our spectral powers have returned?
This is not the Titan's magic.
This is of our world, yet unlike anything I have known.
What? Do you guys realize what they literally just revealed in two very
So
clear
how
lines?
does the green dragon know that
Scotty
she
man, how
has
you doing, bro?
spectral
Thanks for the right man.
powers?
Really appreciate it. Welcome to the channel. Thank you. Do you know what they just revealed there? Twofold. One, they are now Azeroth's aspects. They're no longer the Titans aspects. Suddenly we get all these flashbacks. Tyr's vision. Tyr sees Zakar shows Tyr that the aspect is going to turn against him and all of the Titans. And now we know that they no longer get their power from the Titans. But there's something even bigger than that being revealed here. Much, much bigger than that. Azeroth isn't a Titan.
Have returned?
This is not the Titan's magic.
This is of our world.
Azeroth is not a Titan, ladies and gentlemen. Nostormu says it, he would know. He spent most of his life being empowered by the Titans. This is not the Titan's power. This is of our world. That is revealed within the cinematic. Yet, zero focus is placed on it at all. The fact that they are the aspect now of Azeroth should have been the front and center
Azeroth
thing within the
specs.
cinematic. That should have been what this
I'm an
cinematic
Azeroth
is about.
specter.
Their relationship with Azeroth, their relationship to Azeroth. There should now have been mention of Tyr. There should have been mention of the other Titans. There should have been a conversation between what Veranoth was actually trying to do. That is what the cinematic should have been about. Instead, we got basically a minute and 30 of word vomit. Just blah, 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 blah. I will say all the things that we are too fucking lazy to fucking show. Because it's far easier to just get the voice actors in and let them read stuff.
You can subscribe to my
we just
stream for
make
free
it so
if
that
you
they're
feel
standing
so
around
inclined.
and pretending to be
it really
busy
helps
with
me
stuff,
out. All
something.
proceeds from it go back into streaming.
It is... if anyone watched this cinematic, anyone watched this cinematic and thought, not too bad. You're high as fuck, bro. You are high as fuck.
Yo, are you talking
There
to me?
is not a single redeeming factor on this cinematic anywhere. Nowhere to be found can anything be redeemed. And the saddest part of it,
You don't have to subscribe to
Dante,
me. You
you're
can
hitting
for
the
free
nail
with Twitch
on
Prime
the
if you
head.
link it up, sync it up.
it's the same
hook it
thing
up.
with everything in Dragonflight. The ideas
go to,
are
like,
there.
Amazon or
execution is
twitch.com/prime or
dog shit.
something. I'll make a command
The
for that later.
ideas are there. It's good ideas. Like, oh my god, here we go. These are good ideas. And yet, you execute on none of it. The execution is just non-existent. It is so fucking frustrating, bro. Because
Doing
AI
there, boys and girls,
follower
Marcus here.
dungeons.
Welcome back
I
to another
literally
video.
just heard
So
about
we've
this
been
a
playing
second
around on the
ago.
PTR today, and we've been testing out the new
Giving,
follower, the new sort of AI follower
really want to
dungeons.
support Mantius.
This is on the patch 10.2.5 PTR that got announced last night. The patch is going to be called Seeds of Renewal, and we got a little bit of a heads up. A little bit of a Blizzard article going over some of the main features of this. We were testing this on the stream, and the one we were
Reclaiming
testing out
Gilneas?
for the most part, and what I wanted to talk
Oh,
about
sorry,
for a few
Data, I
minutes
didn't
in this
mean to
video
scare you.
today is the Dragonflight follower dungeons. I'll leave a link to this article in the description down below if you want to have a read through it in detail yourself, because there's a bunch of cool stuff coming in the new patch. But the follower dungeons are quite a cool little addition. I'm quite excited about these, and we tested some of them out, and they look pretty good. You can tank, heal, or DPS alongside NPC non-playing character companions that will join you on your dungeon adventures. They will be available for all 8 normal Dragonflight dungeons and will scale from 1 to 4 players. So you and a couple of buddies could, if you can't quite fill that entire party, choose to do a follower dungeon and dive in and have those remaining slots filled by some NPCs. Or, the thing that I really think Blizzard should focus on more so than anything else is this next bit. The companions will allow players to learn about Dragonflight dungeons at their own pace and provide the freedom to experiment and customize their party makeup. This is, for me, the big selling point of this feature. I think this allows people an entry into an
Is this gonna allow
environment
me
to test out
to
things
play a
without the
Shockaday
stress of
as a DPS,
potentially
and it
annoying
gives
others,
me 2
right?
DPS that are competent.
You can stand at a
and
target dummy and you
viable,
can pew
while
away at a
also
target
giving
dummy
me
all you
a
like to
tank and
try
a
and
healer.
figure out your DPS rotation, but it's incredibly difficult to practice both tanking or healing without doing it. Unless you're actually out there doing it, it can be quite a daunting process for some players, especially new players, to learn this stuff. And this is where I think the advantage of these follower dungeons could be really strong. If you want to pick up a new class, if you want to pick up a new spec, heck, you just want to try out some new talents or abilities, you can go and do a normal dungeon, and you know, it's a safe environment for you to do so. It's a nice little test environment, and that's kind of what I really feel these follower dungeons should be. Now, I'll talk about some of the limitations of this in a minute and some of the pros and cons to it, but I think from a testing perspective, these could be really powerful. We had way back in the day, things like proving grounds, which were a way that Blizzard implemented for you to be able to sort of go into a fake environment and test some of this stuff out. They even went as far as making proving grounds a requirement for you to have access to LFR, which was maybe a controversial decision back then. But this was all the way back in Mists of Pandaria, so most people probably don't even remember it. But if you're new to the game, this could be a very good way to get into playing some dungeons. Obviously, for the moment, we are going to see this with Dragonflight dungeons, which most of us are going to be very familiar with. But let's look at this from the perspective of a brand new expansion that's going to turn up at some point next year. If they're able to say, right, these are the brand new dungeons, go and have a bit of an explore of these dungeons at your leisure, it could be very, very good. Looking at this, we did do some testing today. You can't use this for leveling your characters from like 0 up to 60, but you can use this for leveling your characters from 60 to 70 because they're considered normal dungeons, and you can pick and choose whichever one. And one of the clear advantages of this, especially if you are DPS, instant queue times. No longer us at DPS are you going to have to potentially wait 5, 10, 15, maybe as much as 20 minutes in some cases to get into a dungeon. You can dive straight in. So let's do this and let's have a little bit of a look at what is presented to you when you get in. So you are joined by 4 friends. From what I can gather, these 4 friends are the same 4 friends you'll meet in all cases. You have a fire mage, you have a protection paladin, you have a resto druid, and you have a shaman as well. So you have a crew of people that will turn up and help you. And if I'm brutally honest, it's quite clever. The mage puts down a table for you, the tank will go do tank things, and the heal will heal you. You have one extra button, which you should just be able to see at the bottom of the screen here. This is called the Dungeon Assistant button. This is basically a toggle on or off. You can choose to lead the party and to choose to go at your own pace, or you can tell the tank to go and, lead the dungeon. So if we were to select this now, toggle to allow the follower to lead the way, I will keep you safe, follow me, and off you go. This is all completely NPC. These are completely AI based, and you can follow along and you can pew pew. And the healer will heal you, and obviously if you choose to play as the healer, shush Alex Straza. If you choose to play as the healer, you can practice your healing, and the tank will only go so far. You can see the tank's even doing some clever things. It's line of sighting. The AI is actually remarkably clever. You can ninja pull. If we ninja pull, the tank will, come and hopefully try and save you, try and take aggro back off you.
That's awesome.
It is entirely possible, by the way, if you are a little bit overzealous, to cause wipes still. You can see the tank's health is taking quite substantial damage here. It's not a completely 100%. You can still fail, let's put it that way. But the point is if I just stop here now, the tank will only go so far forward. She might pull the next pack, but she won't continue on through the dungeon in its entirety. So you can't totally AFK the dungeons. One thing we did notice as well is if you do just choose to AFK and not do anything, things like looting the mobs becomes a little bit problematic. The despawn time of mobs that you don't attack is really, really quick. They've clearly tuned it so that if you are just AFKing, you can't completely scumbag your way through the dungeon and get free loot. We'll talk about loot a little bit in a minute, actually, because that's a topic of conversation. I have a bit of a hot take on this, and I want to see what other people's view on it is. If you're watching during the stream, you'll know exactly what I mean. But as you can see, tank does tank things, healer does healer things, and it's all pretty smooth. If I click the button again to say that I want to lead the way, everybody waits for me. This I think is really good. You get a phone call, the baby wakes up, you need to take the dog for a pee, you want to take a bathroom break, you want to grab a drink. It's entirely flexible, and this is really, really cool. I think there are some vast advantages to this for a lot of players. Firstly, I think
amazing.
the queue time situation, especially if you play DPS, is going to be a massive quality of life advantage here. Huge quality of life to be able to just chain run dungeons if you so choose. This could be a really good way for you to level up your characters, at least, you know, in that last bracket of 60 to 70. If going and doing all of the world quests is just too much like hard work for you now, maybe spam some normal dungeons with NPCs. I think this is going to be very advantageous for people who are just learning a new spec. I, for example, have tried over the years to keep a lot of characters towards max level, but it means it could have been 12 months, 2 years since I've last played a class. If I was to say jump on my Warlock right now, although my Warlock is level 60, I would probably have absolutely no idea what I'm doing with the Warlock. I may not necessarily have played any more than one of the specs on the Warlock. It means I could switch things up and I could go into a dungeon and I could test and I could play around. And I'm not going to annoy anybody and I'm not going to put anybody else out due to low performance. And more importantly, that also applies to things like healing and tanking. It has been historically quite difficult for people to get into healing and get into tanking if you're new to the game, because there are strong expectations of you just instantly knowing what you're doing. And that's not always the case. You can see here, if I'm choosing to lead, whoever I tag and whoever I pull, tank goes in, tank does tank things, and we continue. We did test this as well, actually, for reference. We tested this with me being the tank. I took my paladin and went prot. Tested what happens if I'm the case. And if you tell your party to lead the way, the mage actually does the pulling, which is quite interesting to me. The tank, under normal circumstances, will skip mobs that you don't really necessarily need to kill. If you tell the tank to lead the way, you'll see it skips this pack of mobs over here, off does the pull-in, tank does tank things. It's quite clever. So overall, I think this should hopefully have given you a bit of an overview, and I hope some of you will understand some of the benefits of this. What I wanted to talk about, though, is I think this is maybe, in a way, a little bit too good. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, look at it from the perspective if you are leveling up, and you have this as an option available to you, why would you choose to play with real people? And this is a bit of a moral dilemma for me in video games, of that I know, to make sure that there's always players available for you to play with, AI companions can be very strong. But at the very same time, the advantages of playing with AI when it's this good is, why would you choose to play with real people given the option now? Now, my solution to this is that I am quite certain in saying that I do not believe that this mode, the AI follower dungeons, should have loot in them. This caused a bit of controversy on the stream. Some people agreed, some people didn't agree, so I'm interested to see what your opinions are on this. But my logic and my reasoning for this is that it would really solidify this as a training mode for people. It would strongly solidify that this is a good place for you to go to try out a new class, try out a new spec, maybe level your characters a little bit, but it's not going to fall into something that players progress through. It's not going to fall into the progression path per se. It will simply be a training exercise for players. Now, the obvious issue with that is that people very quickly came to the conclusion that then why would anybody do it? And I don't think this is a piece of content or a game mode that is strictly designed for everybody. I think that this is a good first initial step into either tanking, a good first step into healing, a good first step for you to allow yourself to explore a new dungeon without interrupting anybody else's playtime or experience. You are not clearly going to do this forever as your main primary focus of play. And what better way to emphasize this as being just a training mode than to say, right, well, you can walk through it with AI, but there's no loot to be had in here. If you want to actually progress properly, you are then going to need to learn in the AI mode, and then maybe progress into normal dungeons, with obviously the mindset eventually of joining a guild and having organized groups. If you just want to speed through the content, then getting 4 friends of yours that all know exactly what each other are doing and are all very experienced is the end goal for everybody, surely.
35.
But I think if they wanted to really excel this and showcase this to be a good place to test and to learn, removing loot, I think, is actually quite a smart way to sort of show the progression for this and to really solidify what this mode is for. As instant queues, no issue with other people doing other silly things, no issues with other players disconnecting, no issues with other players playing the wrong spec, no issues with other players being overly toxic. There's quite a few advantages of playing with AI, and I think they need to be careful about balancing that out, and I think the easiest way to balance that out is to maybe remove the loot from this mode. If you remove the loot from this mode, it also allows Blizzard, I think, this is still, up for debate, I think it allows Blizzard to take this concept and spread it throughout the game a little bit more. I would love to see this kind of AI mode for LFR. Just recently, with the launch of patch 10.2, it's been a big point of contention for a lot of players that to kill Farak, to kill the final boss,
Yo, what up,
to
crazy?
see the last cutscene for yourself of this patch, if
Yeah,
you are
I'm
not
DE
doing normal
gloves.
raiding, heroic raiding, or mythic raiding, if you're relying on group finder-esque content, LFR is still vastly time-gated. You could have
Might
a
Jap on, not
follower
show you
LFR
talking? Oh, no, it
mode,
did.
which would allow you to still progress through the raid, still see the raid, still see the bosses, still get a feel
Did
for
it
some
not
of
under-
the
Okay,
mechanics
there we go.
involved, and even get some progression for your campaign quest line, see the
DE
final
and
cinematic.
regular linen gloves.
And of course, if in that scenario they did it without any
Yeah,
loot
it's
as
frozen.
well, there is clear advantages. You're progressing, you're seeing everything, but it would also say to players, hey,
I like how he's got the
you've done
pink
this now.
pachyderm. I don't
If
know
you
how
want
he
to
got
loot
that.
and you
I
want
mean,
to get the
Brewfest,
better gear and
obviously,
you want to
but
progress even
I
further,
didn't know that there was
now you
a-
need to go find a bunch of people
one you
to go
could
and
tame.
do it with. And that's where I think this mode could really, fill a gap. It could help people learn, it could help people figure stuff out, it could help people test, and it should push people in the right direction with the overall goal of being that playing with other people is and should be the best approach. Now, obviously, some people may disagree with this, that if you're having fun, it doesn't matter if you're playing with real people or not. But an MMO, in my opinion, is at its strength when you are playing with other people, even if those other people are random people, but with the ultimate goal of finding a group of individuals that are like-minded
reload
enough,
here.
that play at similar times to you, the ideological design of slowly but surely progressing towards joining a guild and finding a bunch of people and hopefully progressing through harder content and killing bigger and badder bosses. I think this is a really, really good addition to the game. I'm excited to see
I think
if they can bring
I'm gonna
this
have to
other,
unlock Volpira so that I can
other
have a
aspects
Volpira
of the
hunter
game.
to farm
I'd be
transmogs
really
for all
cool
my
to
other
see if
characters.
this makes it past
Either that or
10.2.5
make a
into
warrior
11.0,
and build
for
a speed
example,
set.
and if it would be a way to see the new dungeons as in a more chill, relaxed approach. But I'll leave it there for today, boys and girls. Let me know your thoughts on this. It's available on the PTR for you to test, so by all means, get the PTR installed, copy a character over there, and have a little bit of a play with this yourself. If you enjoyed the video today, make sure to give the video a like, leave your comments down below, and of course, subscribe if you're new around here. But I've been Manthius, and I'll see you all next time, boys and girls.
It's working.
Peace.
Look how many I've sold. He's doing it all with the same bags. You see that? I've got way more bags than he does. He says he gets his cloth for free, But I bought all of the cloth last night, and he is having a hard time making as many bags as he usually does. So he's either decided to not make them all, or he cannot. It's like it's like 60 silver to post a bag, and I'm making several gold off of each sale of a bag, so I can repost them so many times. Data, what are you chewing on? 1 second. Data, what are you doing? I'll get you some more water. Alright, let's post these. It's saying that's 200% of market price now. Damn, that sucks. Price went down. Alright, I'm still the lowest price. Do a vendor search while we craft these up. Hat of Wintry Doom. Netherweave bags, here we go. None of these are green, right? There's nothing cheaper. No. 1,400 gold plus 3.5k that Zarnix owes me. I'm almost at 20k again. 1420. Nice. Let's check the chat. Nothing. Unwatched. Get out of here, Data. My rabbit's being very needy. Nice, I made 2G off these books. Oh, he just came online. He's going to undercut me again. I can't position stuff right on my screen. Huge buffs for Warlock. All new
more
runes.
widespread viability throughout
Alright.
this season, that being whether you prefer a
Look at
damage
these-
over time
these
heavy
tank-
affliction playstyle, blasting your targets directly with destruction spells, or leaning more into the tanking class fantasy that the Warlock has had here and there. So let's make a start on the chest runes and see what's new. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor, Opera GX. Opera GX is an internet browser made by people who understand that a browser can be so much more than a simple tool to navigate the internet. Opera GX has tons of features to allow you to track the things which are most important to you, including being able to add things to the sidebar such as YouTube, Twitter, Discord, to even things such as WhatsApp and music players. Then there is GX Mods. This allows you to customize Opera GX in so many different ways. I picked the Medieval mod. Not only does this change the theme and colors of the browser, it has dedicated wallpaper and even unique background music and sound effects when typing. And if you want some parts of a particular mod but not another, any part of it can be disabled or swapped out as you wish. And there are hundreds of mods to check out. all for free of course, but it can be problematic swapping to a new browser and losing all of your logins, your bookmarks and everything like that. Fortunately, OperaGX have thought of that too. Simply use the synchronization tool on settings to import everything, including plugins from your previous browser. It's hard to cover just how many features OperaGX has compared to your normal browser, but you can discover everything I've gone over here today by downloading OperaGX for free via the link in the description below. Many thanks to OperaGX for the sponsor today. Let's get back to WoW. First of all, we have a totally new addition to the game, Lake of Fire. It causes Rain of Fire to leave a zone on the floor that will increase all fire damage you and your demon deal by 40% for 15 seconds. Okay, we're getting straight to the point here. Blizzard want Destruction to care about dealing fire damage rather than just sitting there and pressing Shadow Bolt. Now, fire destruction has always had its place in these early versions of WoW, but it struggled to find itself being more effective than Shadow. You may remember in the Burning Crusade when Warlock got Incinerate as a filler spell, we'll be talking more about Incinerate in a moment, that Warlock still back then went Shadow more often than not because of Seed of Corruption. And no, there is no Seed of Corruption in Season of Discovery. Or is there? We'll talk about that soon too. So whether you're choosing this rune to improve your Hellfire on AoE, or just casting a rank 1 on single target for the debuff, this is going to put a much bigger punch into your fire spells. Even just tab targeting Immolate with this debuff up would add quite a bit of damage. Next we have Master Channeler. Your drain life is no longer channeled and instead appears to be a damage over time effect that lasts 15 seconds with a 15-second cooldown. Its mana cost is increased by 100% and heals for 50% more each time it deals damage. I think this ability is more geared towards PvP and of course Warlock tanking. Though just as a reference, the highest rank of drain life we can get by level 25 is rank 2, which we learn at level 22. This does 17 damage a tick. Let's say we have some extra spell power from new items in the game, and that drain life is doing 20 damage per tick instead. Over a 15-second duration, assuming it's ticking once per second with Master Channeler, that's 300 damage dealt and 450 healing. That is not half bad. And the early ranks of drain life are known for being quite weak as well. With the highest rank of drain life, Master Channeler will have a base damage of just over 1000 and it will do 1500 healing, and that's pure base damage with 0 spell power. This rune is going to be crazy at higher levels. Next we have Siphon Soul. It increases the amount drained by drain life and drain soul by 6% for each of these shadow effects afflicting the target, up to a maximum of 18% bonus damage. I think the wording of shadow effects will mean any shadow debuff that's active, though it means you could apply a utility curse such as Curse of Shadows, and that's still going to contribute. Probably, that's how it reads to me. Either way, it does seem that Blizzard are trying to push a damage over time version of the Warlock in vanilla, and you know what, I'm just gonna say it, it needs more help than they're currently getting. The reason why is damage over time effects in vanilla do not crit, and they don't scale with haste, and there are barely any haste modifiers anyway, and there are also very few temporary sources of spell power to boost the power of your dots with. Also, things don't tend to live for very long in vanilla either, and Drain Soul doesn't execute. Apart from that, they'll be fine. It will be good for leveling and the Drain Tank playstyle, it certainly has that going for it. Again, this is the start of the season, it's very early on, maybe more pieces of the puzzle will appear at levels 40, 50 and 60. Finally for the chest is Demonic Tactics. This is a bit of a flexible pick, which could fit well enough into any specialization. The best use for this is
melee
probably
and spell
some kind
critical
of
strike
Shadow
chance of
Mastery,
you and
Ruin,
your pet by
Destruction build,
10%.
but that will be possible at level 60 of course and not 25. And with another rune we'll see later, I think the more or less one-button Shadow Bolt spec will still be a thing, you know. But those are all the chest runes, onto the legs. The next part of the Affliction lot is here with Everlasting Affliction, and it's going to be a similar story to what I said about Siphon Soul, because what this does is causes a bunch of your spells to refresh the duration of Corruption. Now this effect is amazing in Wrath of the Lich King because of Snapshotting. Snapshotting is using a spell when you have loads of bonus effects running, such as Spell Power, Crit Chance, and Flat Damage Increase, and then you can keep that huge buffed up damage over time effect over the course of a whole fight, and it adds a lot to your damage. These bonuses either don't exist in vanilla or are currently very rare. This rune might as well read saves you 1 global cooldown every 18 seconds. But again, I could be wrong, they could be adding things to fix this later, we will see. Next we have a modified version of Incinerate. Whereas the version we'll be used to is a casted fire spell that deals bonus damage to targets afflicted by Immolate, update, this new version instead increases all fire damage dealt by 25% for 15 seconds. And when you add on top the 40% you're already getting from Lake of Fire, that is a lot of extra damage for your fire warlocks. These spells are also going to affect all of your fire spells, so
burn
your
down the
Hellfire is
hot
going to be doing some
topic.
big numbers. In fact, Hellfire might be dealing so much damage to the warlock that it's not really practical to use. Other than that, your Soulfire crits are going to be huge with all these buffs running, and I have to imagine that Incinerate is still the filler spell for fire destruction, since Searing Pain generates bonus threat, and unless tanking threat is way improved, it's just going to be too much. And there is one more big fire spell to talk about, but that's on the glove runes a little bit later. Next we have Demonic Grace, which acts as a cooldown aimed primarily at tanking warlocks. Demonic Grace increases you and your demon's chance to dodge by 30%, as well as increasing the chance to critically strike by 30% for 6 seconds. A good mix of offense and defense is on offer here. This is going to be great at the start of a fight when you need to establish threat. Having a much higher chance to crit should help out a lot. This could be okay for other builds as well. 30% crit is a big number. I do wonder though whether this will be on the global cooldown. If it is, you're only going to be able to get 3 spells out of it. If it's not, you can get 4. Pretty big difference, time will tell. The final leg rune we have is Demonic Pact, a talent from Wrath of the Lich King which I am all too familiar with because I main a demo log. This one does work a bit differently though. First of all, it's party-wide instead of raid-wide. Oh boy, party-wide, highly impactful buffs. I did not miss this from TBC if I'm honest. Also, it always grants a bare minimum amount of spell power because in vanilla, when you're leveling, quite often you just don't have any spell power because Blizzard
8 warlocks,
were too
8
busy putting
shamans,
strength and agility on cloth
8
gear.
paladins.
So yeah. In raiding environments though, this rune is going to be very powerful and will buff casters or healers in your party
8
by
warriors,
10%
8
of
priests.
the warlock's total spell power. So roll a warlock today and get
raid.
priority for caster upgrades, in other words. I don't know how I feel about this one. It's such a huge party-wide buff, it may become a bit too mandatory. At least in PvE, that is. Finally, we have the glove runes, a lot of ones to be excited about here. First up is Haunt. This is the final part of the Affliction
Haunt is
warlock
pretty
package.
sick.
I don't think 20% more dot damage on top of the other runes is enough to make it work. This will be incredible for leveling though. Straight up, warlocks don't need food or water anymore, ever. Maybe we'll see some more support for the Affliction playstyle at endgame or raiding later on, but at level 25, I don't think that's what you're going to be playing. Next is an ability which I'm probably way too excited about, Shadow Bolt Volley. How many bosses and NPCs over the years in vanilla have we seen use some kind of volley ability? And now for the first time ever, we can send a volley right back at them. Shadow Bolt Volley makes your Shadow Bolt strike up to 5 targets within a chain distance of 10 yards of your target, but for 20 reduced damage. Is that supposed to be 20% or are we just talking a flat 20? Even
Flat
if we
20,
assume
dude.
it's 20% less damage. This is one of the most powerful runes in the game. This ability has a cooldown or something, right? There's no way your Shadow Bolt just hits 5 targets. I couldn't find footage of somebody actually trying this at BlizzCon, so we'll have to wait and see. But remember, in vanilla, when Shadow Bolt crits, it makes targets take 20% more shadow damage for the next 4 direct hits, and you can get 100% bonus crit damage from Ruin, and 10% more crit chance from Demonic Tactics. No class in the game will be able to compare with the damage this does on 3 to 5 targets. This rune is just better Seed of Corruption. I'm actually gonna go as far as saying that. Can't wait to try this one out in
Better Seed of
dungeons. I
Corruption?
don't think people are gonna like tanking it though. Moving on, we have the spell that Fire Warlocks will be looking forwards to, Chaos Bolt.
Chaos Bolt is
This
pretty
similar
sick.
to the
Goes
Wrath of the Lich
through,
King version, where it's a
absorption
casted
effects.
high damage single target fire spell. This early version of Chaos Bolt does not guarantee crit, and instead cannot be resisted, which in vanilla is pretty good actually, as well as causing all fire spells to pierce absorption effects, which is more of a PvP thing but very strong at the same time. And with 40% fire damage from Lake of Fire, 25% from Incinerate, and then later by level 60 you can spec into Demonic Sacrifice for 15% more fire damage, and 10% more from Ember Storm in the Destruction Tree, and yeah. I think this ability is gonna hit pretty hard. I mean, there is this small problem with fire damage specs called Molten Core and Blackwing Lure and fire immune bosses. We'll deal with that when we get there, I guess. Last but not least, it's the rune engraving that's going to turn your warlocks into tanks. Metamorphosis. Warlocks now and again have had this tanking role in WoW. We tanked Twin Emperors in vanilla, on the Demon during Leotheris the Blind in TBC, and most recently they can be used on the Blood Prince's fight in ICC. And though they've always had this tanking fantasy, they've always tanked casters using their high health pools and life regeneration tools, so for Warlocks to really become a tank, they're going to need to get in the fight and be able to take melee hits. So the first part of the meta rune will cover that. Locks will gain 500% more armor and reduce the chance to be crit by 6%. On top of that, they'll generate 100% more threat and gain extra mana from life tap. Searing Pain will be your main single target threat generator and will also be instant. For multiple enemies you have Shadow Cleave, which replaces Shadow Bolt, and your Curse of Recklessness will now be your taunt. You also get Demon Charge, which is very similar to a Warrior Charge, and a Demonic Howl, which is an AoE taunt. It seems like a solid toolkit for this class to really start tanking content, and I expect to see plenty of meta locks tanking at 25. Again, bit of a concern about Molten Core, Blackwing Lair, and Searing Pain since it can't hit a bunch of bosses.
I haven't
Maybe
sold
Warlocks
a bag
just
in
don't
a little
maintain
bit. It's
these
probably
fights,
time to
but it's quite far off
drop
into the
another
future,
undercut.
so we'll see when we get there. And that is everything for Warlocks. So overall thoughts at this early stage. I think there will still be a spec which is basically just pressing Shadow Bolt, but it will focus mainly on dungeon or AoE content. If Shadow Bolt Volley just straight up makes Shadow Bolt hit 5 targets with a small damage penalty, this ability will be turbo broken. I'm kind of hoping it works like that so I can try it, but we'll see soon enough, won't we? Fire Destruction looks very promising. Once we're at level cap, you will have near enough 100% bonus fire damage. If that doesn't make it somewhat viable, I don't know what will. Demonic Pact is a concern, I'm not gonna lie. Those super rigid raid groups we had in TBC were not my favorite thing, to be honest. I was happy to move away from that in Wrath. Affliction, for me, I just don't think it's gonna be a thing quite yet. Sorry if you enjoy dots, but dots suck in vanilla. They scale very poorly, meanwhile single target casted spells can crit and gain a ton of extra damage. And the Metamorphosis tank has a solid toolkit that I think is also quite well thought out for this early stage. As always, there will be new runes and content to discover as we progress later on into the season. But what we know now very much doesn't paint the full picture. Nevertheless, I enjoy the theory craft and making predictions on what will be good and what will be not so good. So let me know your thoughts on the Warlock. Is there any particular build you're looking forwards to? And am I right about Affliction, or am I sleeping on it? Let me know below. And as always, thank you all so much for watching
Thanks,
and listening
Willie.
in. And I'll see you.
You got any other videos like that? Druid one.
The
Yeah,
Druid
let's
in
watch
Vanilla
that.
World of Warcraft is the class that has the ability to do it all. Do you want a healer? They can heal. Do you need a tank? Well, they can do that too. And if you are in need of a DPS, Feral with enough effort can be quite good, and Moonkin's a thing, I guess. Whilst Druid had this diverse class fantasy as the shapeshifter, shifting to meet their party's needs, it often turned out in reality that they struggled to be good enough at one thing to really see a lot of play. This became very noticeable during the re-release of Classic in 2019, where unfortunately for our nature-loving druids, it was not uncommon to see 1 or 2 of them in a 40-player raiding group. On top of that, they were almost surely healing, as that was seen as their most viable role. Oh, and you couldn't use heal over time effects either because there was a buff cap, and with players stacking world buffs and consumables, a rejuvenation could push a world buff off of somebody's buff list, which would more often than not lead to a very unhappy warrior. And heal over time effects of the same rank don't stack anyway, so yeah. You existed, buffed Mark of the Wild on the raid, cast Healing Touch and pressed Fairy Fire, so your raid's 24 warriors could delete the enemy 0.1 seconds faster. So in Season of Discovery, I'm very much hoping that Druids get some help, and that we can see this class represented a lot more. Druids currently have 12 known runes across 3 slots, those being their chest, legs, and gloves. Each rune does lean somewhat towards a niche playstyle for the Druid, but these choices are not locked behind any specialization choice. You can mix and match them as you please. Let's make a start on the runes that can be applied to your chest. First up, Fury of Storm Rage. Your wrath is free and has a chance to make your next healing touch instant. Well, Moonkins, there you go. Can't have mana problems if you don't have mana costs, can you? This talent was actually from Cataclysm and is found in the Restoration tree during that expansion. In Cata, when healers have downtime, there is more of an expectation to start DPSing, and many healer trees feature something akin to this. So so it's an interesting solution to Moonkin's mana bar problems in vanilla. You also have the option to pop out of Moonkin form, do an instant healing touch, and then go back into form. That's only going to use about a third of your mana on a good day, right? Those druid spells are still expensive. Also remember Wrath is nature damage, and if you play Boomy in vanilla, or played with one, you'll know they only ever cast Starfire, which dealt arcane damage. There were two reasons for that. One was just the mana efficiency side of things. They could keep casting for longer, which is obviously not a problem anymore. And the second reason was neither Curse of Elements or Shadows from Warlocks reduces enemies' nature resistance or increases nature damage taken. Kind of ironic, Curse of Elements doesn't consider nature an element, but there you go, vanilla. Could new curses be added at some point that reduces nature and holy resistances or damage taken? After all, those two spell schools were bundled together in TBC for flasks. And I was going to say Resto Druids might want to consider this spell, but remember that spell power and healing power are different stats in vanilla, so restoration would not be contributing much damage, and it's probably just downranking spells if they wanted to be efficient. Either way, Wrath should become your main filler spell, and you can use your mana bar on other things now as a boonkin. Next, Wild Strikes. Oh boy, so what this says is basically, well, in Cat Bear or Dire Bear form, players within 20 yards in your party get Wind Fury. So, Alliance just got Wind Fury, in other words. Feral Stonks just went through the roof. Feral will now be required for every melee group in PvE. Or will it just be Ferals picking up this rune? Will Resto Druids be expected to take this rune and hop into cat form and do a slash dance when there isn't much healing to do? Or do you just only ever bring Feral Druids now to raiding content? Also, while this is strong, the way Horde applies Wind Fury is notably different, and maybe advantageous. They can just have any shaman slam down a Wind Fury totem, and that's it, your Wind Fury's up for a period of time. This new version forces somebody to use a rune, which are all very powerful, and to be in a shapeshift form. Then again, from what I can tell, Wild Strikes is an aura-type standard buff, not a weapon buff, meaning you can put on sharpening stones and ferals themselves will benefit from Wind Fury. So maybe both factions want ferals now. I mean, hypothetically, if this was a weapon buff like Wind Fury is, you'd expect it to also be a periodic effect, which means your druids would be power shifting for Wild Strikes. And I don't know how I feel about that. This is definitely one of the more powerful runes from a utility point of view we will see in this season. I just hope it doesn't warp the whole druid class,
There we
especially
go,
on
selling
Alliance,
some bags
around
again.
this one rune. The next one, Survival of the Fittest, is pretty simple. It might as well read, hey, if you're a bear druid, you can now tank raid bosses. You also get a 20% flat damage reduction in bear, which is a huge amount. And as we will see later, druids are getting bonuses to their threat generation too. They also become crit immune in PvE, smoothing out damage intake by a lot. This was not possible in vanilla, and was one of the big issues that bear tanks faced. So get used to seeing a lot more than just warrior tanks in Season of Discovery, because this is just one of many improved tanking specs. Finally, for the chest runes, we have Living Seed, which is of course tailored towards restoration druids. You know, at first I was a bit skeptical about this, and I think it could be okay. It's just going to be very mana intensive. We'll see with the other Resto Druid focused runes that you're going to be getting some powerful heal over times, but this one wants you to care more about your casted spells. I'm assuming still no heal over time effects can crit, or this would be crazy overpowered, since it applies from any heal in the version that we are shown here. However, druids can spec into 50% plus crit chance on regrowth through talents, and the tier 2 5 set reduces the cast time of regrowth by 0.2 seconds. In fact, back in 2019 Classic, this tier set made regrowth healing a thing. I realise we're going to be level 25 on launch and we're a bit far off getting tier 2, but it was just a thought. Outside of the regrowth build, you aren't critting anywhere near enough without world buffs to make this seem useful to me, and assuming heal over time still cannot crit, as they could not in vanilla, this just seems okay. Next we have the runes for the leg slot. First up we have Savage Roar, the combo point spender from Wrath that makes your Feral Druid really start to do damage. You spend combo points to do 30% more physical damage, and its duration scales with how many points you spend. For Classic though, you might as well put an asterisk beneath this ability, which says requires power shifting, because energy regeneration in Classic is static. It doesn't scale with haste effects, you don't have Berserk, and Tiger's Fury doesn't give you energy. You just don't have extra resources available. I feel like Savage Roar is
No
the
extra
first part of the puzzle for
resources
ferals. May future rune will
available.
improve their energy regen, or just make more of it available. I mean, it's still probably going to be better than your other finishing moves, but it feels kind of clunky with where it is at the moment. Next up is a Life Bloom. This is the Wrath of the Lich King version, which, again, seems rather mana intensive for vanilla. It's an instant cast which can stack up to 3 times on a single target, and half the mana is refunded when the spell ends. It also reduces the global cooldown on rejuvenation and a Life Bloom too. This is a solid heal over time. Front-loaded mana cost though. I wonder if the last tick can crit in vanilla. I'm guessing it would still count as a periodic effect, so the answer would be no, but if it did, that would be great for Living Seed. I hope druids get more of a chance to heal over time. It's just healing in Classic is very fast and reactive. You see a health bar dip and it's kind of like a race to see who can top it up first. On top of that, there's only really a handful of fights where the raid is taking consistent damage. So maybe this is one you mainly keep rolling on the tanks and the warlocks when they're life tapping. Next is Skull Bash. Presumably this will be available in both bear and cat form. This is a mix of a gap closer and an interrupt that should be a powerful tool for druids of all specs in all areas of content. For the rune slot that it's in, it is more oriented towards bear, where it's like a second mini feral charge with a brief interrupt attached to it. This ability was introduced in Cataclysm, where originally it interrupted for 5 seconds before later being nerfed down to a 4-second lockout. So we are getting a more toned down version of it than that. Seems pretty good really, not much to add here. And for balance, you're getting one of the big iconic abilities that this specialization has, Star Surge. This is a big hard-hitting spell with a short cooldown for Boomy, at least I'm presuming that's what it'll be. Notably here it does arcane damage, not Spellstorm as it does in Kata. Spellstorm just being arcane and nature together. Good for curse synergy, as we've already talked about though. It says it benefits from talents too, so this should include extra base damage, crit chance, spell cast time reduction, and crit damage. So if this thing hits you and crits, you should expect a good amount of your health bar to just evaporate. Definitely makes Boomy far more the PvP threat, and is just a fun extra button to press in PvE. Finally, we have the Glove Runes. Feral Druids will be getting Mangle, and this is a bit of a mix and match as to which version of Mangle it is. First up, it specifies that it will benefit from effects that trigger Claw or Maul, so I'm assuming this is Mangle for both Bear and Cat here. The 1 minute duration on bleed effects and bonuses to Shred was a Wrath of the Lich King change too, which was brought up from 12 seconds in TBC, but the normal damage modifier of 160% here was from TBC Mangle Cat. Mangle Bear in TBC had a damage modifier of 115%. Then again, Mangle has for a long time technically been 2 abilities, balanced differently for Bear and Cat, though I'm not entirely sure what we are getting here. This does however fit the Feral DPS rune in the glove slot, the best out of all the abilities that are shown on this row. So maybe it is
I like
purely
Mangle how
intended
it's the
for
same
them
for
this
Bear
time
and
around.
Cat.
I guess
Like
we'll
the same
know
button.
for sure on
So you just
launch.
put it on.
The Restoration
One
is a
key
spell
binding,
added
you're
in
like,
Wrath of the
that's my
Lich King,
spamming button.
Wild Growth. Instant heal over time that applies to several players, except it's been vanilla-ified. In Wrath it's party or raid members. In Classic, very similar to TBC Circle of Healing, it's party only. You know, it took Blizzard nearly all of Wrath of the Lich King to change Wild Growth to where it prioritizes players over pets and guardians. Surely that won't happen again, right? All in all, seems like a good heal on melees, as you know they're going to be stacked, but it may be harder to use on more spread out ranged groups. Can I just say here, Resto Druids don't get Omen of Clarity passively in Classic, and even if you did spec into it, it doesn't proc from spellcasts. These new heals seem good and everything, but I just don't know where the mana is coming from. Unless you do spec into Omen of Clarity, find the fastest melee weapon you can, and melee to fish for procs in between spellcasts. This could actually be a thing, you know. I guess time will tell. As a flex pick, we have Sunfire. Now this is quite different from the spell you may know from later expansions. In Season of Discovery, it will be an extra damage over time effect that causes nature damage. It's not an AoE version of Moonfire. Also, Sunfire can be cast in bear form, and in cat form too, where it will also grant a combo point, and it'll probably cost 45 energy or so. In the later expansions, Legion I think it was, Blizzard added Moonfire as castable in forms for druids, so it's kind of similar to that. This will probably be taken by boomies for the most part, even though damage over time effects tend not to be that great in Classic as they don't crit or benefit from haste. Boomkins
Moonfire,
will now have
Sunfire,
mana to
Insect Swarm,
spare.
let's
It could
go.
possibly have use in cat if the energy cost is very
Then do
low,
free
but
wrath.
that would mean not having Mangle, so I doubt it. Now I'm starting to think that Mangle may be cat only, you know, because after having read this version of Lacerate that we're getting, it might as well be. Lacerate applies a bleed that stacks up to 5 times and causes a high amount of threat. Okay, I'm pretty sure that in all group content you're going to have a Feral because they can do Wind Fury, so that's got your bleed damage covered. But there is something even more interesting about this version of Lacerate. The bonus damage it deals is weapon damage. So this is the first time ever a Feral Spectre Druid has actually had to care about their weapon in vanilla. The whole manual crowd pummeler farming meta existed purely because Feral had no weapon damage scaling. Well, Burge, you're now off the hook and can proudly rock that Warden staff as this. Assuming the Warlock tanks don't take it, of course. Spoilers. At Druids though, back to Noma with you, at least for the time being. To be honest, I am thinking way ahead here though. We're going to be level 25 in Season of Discovery for a good amount of time. Maybe the level 40 runes will change this whole format up once again, but that's the fun of the seasonal really, isn't it? So then, a few closing thoughts on each spec as they currently are. The most improved for me at this early stage has to be Moonkin. With a free damage dealing spell to cast, Star Surge and another damage over time effect, the laser chicken is really starting to cook. It's a shame that Curse of Shadows or Elements doesn't affect nature spells. I think this is a bit of an oversight in vanilla, but there is room to fix it this season. Next is the Burr tank. Survival of the Fittest and Lacerate are both huge additions to get. However, there are no misdirection effects in Season of Discovery, yet at least, though Burrs will need a moment to ramp up their threat. But I think once you have your Lacerate stacks going, mobs are going to stick to you like a warrior with Thunder Fury. Their AoE threat is still practically non-existent though, but for a main tank, Burr is looking very solid. Next is Feral Cat. The fact that Alliance are getting Wind Fury is a big deal. The way it's applied may also make it of interest for Horde when it comes to min-maxing later on in the game too. Mangle is a good filler and a general damage tool, and as good as Savage Roar is, I think you need more things to generate combo points before that will really start scaling. Maybe I'm wrong on that one though. Then Restoration. Honestly, the healing additions seem good, they do. I've just no idea where you're going to get the mana needed to cast these spells. But you could very well be forced to essentially waste 11 talent points to get Omen of Clarity, and then have to stand in melee range attacking to make it work. But those are my current thoughts on the Druid and the runes that we have available. A good start, I would say. We all know Druids need some help. Either way, let me know your thoughts on the Druid and the runes that they have received so far. Anything in particular you're looking forwards to, do drop it down in the comments. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all on the next one very soon.
Why do I want them dead, Black Fathom Deeps?
Some say the shores of Zorm's Strand are haunted. Adventurers have been known to mysteriously disappear, captured by malevolent forces to appease a dark god. Those who wander the shores of Zorm's Strand may hear the screams of those devoured by the eternally hungry beast lurking within the ancient ruins of the Black Fathom Deeps. Oh, but it wasn't always this spooky. 10,000 years ago, the Black Fathom Deeps was not called the Black Fathom Deeps. It was called Lothar Lazal, a beautiful night elf temple, which means seat of the sky in Darnassian. This place of worship was dedicated to Elune, and was overseen by Queen Ajara herself. She used her scepter, Sharas Dal, to control the waters around the temple. And this scepter would later be used by resto shamans in the Legion expansion, by the way. And with Ashar's influence, the pools around the temple would be flourishing with aquatic life, like beautiful schools of one-polygon fish. Ajara even bound a sea giant to the temple, who did tricks and feats of strength for all of the visitors who traveled near and far to observe Lothar Lazal's beauty. And then the Great Sundering happened, and the world was ripped apart, and the temple sunk into the sea. During the span of 10,000 years, the once pristine and now broken ruins of the temple have been buried under the ground, lost to time, and filled with the corruption of the old gods. Fun fact about this dungeon, it was originally planned to be located in the zone of Darkshore, as we see here in this early development map. And if you travel to the upper corner of the zone, you can see the exact replica of the temple's entrance used for the actual location in Ashenvale. The dark monstrosity that has taken residence within these ruins is Akumai, the terror of the deep. This corrupted Hydra's influence drew in the Twilight's Hammer cultists. These old god worshippers are a common enemy you'll find on the world of Azeroth, worshipping the powers of the void or the elementals it has enslaved, and their ultimate goal is to bring forth the Hour of Twilight, a prophecy of doom, where all of Azeroth is consumed with shadow. This particular enclave of cultists is led by Twilight Lord Kelris, who believes that Akumai was the herald of the old gods, and his personal ticket of endless power and immortality. So in order to worship the beast, the cultists took refuge in what would now be called the Black Fathom Deeps, and began sacrificing maybe willing cultist members to the terror of the deep in order to earn favor.
How does a Tauren hide in a cherry tree? He paints his hooves red.
But when they ran out of cultists to sacrifice, they began to capture Horde and Alliance members and drag them kicking and screaming into the corrupted ruins, never to be seen again. The first people to investigate this dark cabal was the Argent Dawn, and during their investigation, they realized the Twilight's Hammer cultists had formed an alliance with the Naga. The Naga were once night elves, twisted by the powers of the old god Nazoth, and are now worshippers of the same void powers as the cultists. The members of the Argent Dawn needed to tell everyone about this insidious partnership until... yeah, their reconnaissance mission didn't really turn out that well. But that is why us, the players, are tasked with delving into the mysterious depths of the Black Fathom Deeps to cull this old god threat and obtain some sweet loot in the process. When entering the dungeon, the first boss you'll find is Gamura, the tortured turtle who has succumbed to madness and is trained to attack outsiders. Next is Lady Cerevis, a Naga who is conducting rituals and research to allow them to worship Akumai without being devoured themselves. Further into the depths, you'll find Gelihast, a Murloc tribe leader who has forced his way inside the deeps. And then he murdered a bunch of cultists and began worshipping and conducting his own sacrifices for the terror of the deep. The Twilight's Hammer cultists were so impressed by the Murloc, they decided that they just, let him stay there in the ruins. Also, Murlocs are scary. The only creature that has eluded the corruption of the deeps is Old Serikis, a thresher who lurks beneath the ruins and has slain countless cultists who dare enter his lair. And finally, of course, we have Twilight Lord Kelris and Akumai, who, lore-wise, are slain by Horde adventurers.
For the Horde!
But our story isn't over just yet, as in the Cataclysm expansion, they reworked how dungeon quests work, and at the front of the entrance, there are Earthen Ring quest givers who task players with clearing BFD once again. But even still, our story is not over, as in the Warlords of Draenor expansion, the Black Fathom Deeps was revamped. Did you remember that? No, I bet you didn't, because it's the most random dungeon revamp that has ever been done in WoW's history. But Blizzard has done this before. In the Mists of Pandaria expansion, the Scarlet Monastery was revamped, but it was also included in the endgame heroic dungeon pool. This isn't the case with the Black Fathom Deeps revamp, which is a shame because it's pretty awesome. There are just tentacles everywhere, this guy throws this dude in the water, Akumai is now 3 Hydra heads poking out of the ground, and it's just cool, but why doesn't it even exist? It was just randomly revamped during an expansion where we're time traveling on an entirely different planet in a totally different plane of existence that has nothing to do with a random section of underground ruins in Ashenvale nobody even goes to anymore. But with the Season of Discovery coming out, the hilarious part is that the Black Fathom Deeps is now the most revamped dungeon in all of World of Warcraft history. There is now 3 totally different versions of this dungeon now. 4 if you count the quest givers added in Kata, but I don't really think that counts. That's right. This random, typically overshadowed dungeon for level 25 players is now the instance Blizzard has tinkered with the most. And personally, I love the simplicity of BFD's story. Traveling into waterlogged, corrupted ruins to kill cultists who are sacrificing innocents to a monster deep beneath the earth just screams old Warcraft fantasy to me, like it's taken straight out of a D&D campaign. Also, there's Murlocs. I don't really have to explain further. Wait, don't leave! I've had the pleasure to partner with Blizzard once again to create some official videos on the Warcraft YouTube channel. At the time of recording this, 1 is currently uploaded with 2 more coming this month. Blizzard has been great to work with, and they basically give me full creative freedom, so they're pretty much videos you'd find on this channel, but on the official Warcraft channel instead. There's a link down below to watch it. Please do, and like, and subscribe. You can do that on this video too. Okay, thanks, bye. Back to the end.
That guy's name was Alliance Tar. Alright, anyway, that's I think that's all the videos that I'm gonna watch today. Speaking of that, I should probably start thinking about what I'm gonna eat today. I'm gonna take off. I've been the Dude Broman the Hiberian. This has been my stream. Thank you for coming. Find me everywhere, THE_DO0D.